So I think the ultimate question has to be, is DSLR scanning the future of film scanning? Welcome back to the channel, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at scanning of film with a flatbed scanner versus a DSLR, and I'm going to be giving some thoughts on whether I think it's the future of film scanning or not. Now, flatbed scanners are widely used, they're very popular and they give great results, but more recently people are moving to scanning with a DSLR like this because it's quicker and it can give some good results, and we're going to look at that today. But scanning film with a DSLR, they typically fall short in colour reproduction and colour bit depth. Now when you scan with a flatbed scanner, the colour bit depth you get out of the scanner is typically 16-bit, and that's great because it gives you smooth gradients across your colours. But with most DSLRs, particularly APS-C and full frame cameras, you only get 8-bit. So if you're interested to know how I scan my film using my Epson V800 and Silverfast, I encourage you to check out my video feed on my YouTube channel, where you can find previous tutorials I've done on scanning slide film, black and white film and colour negative film. I've also got a tutorial on how to colour calibrate your flatbed scanner and Silverfast for scanning slide film. What I'll do is, in the description section down below, I'll leave links to where you can find those videos and go and watch them. So I thought it'd be quite good just to quickly talk you through how I actually scan my film using my DSLR. What I'll do is I'll put an image up on the screen that'll show you how I did it, and I'll talk you through the equipment that I used. Obviously you're going to need to support your camera with something. You might be able to use your tripod with an extension arm, or you can purchase something dedicated like me, which is a document scanning tripod. You're also going to need a light table. Now it doesn't have to be an A3 size light table like mine. You can just do it with an A4 light table, but ideally you want something that has adjustable light settings. You're also going to need something to hold your film with. Now I prefer to use the film holders that come with my Epson V800, and there's good reason for that. The first one is that they've got an anti-Newton ring diffusion glass that sits below the film, so that just helps diffuse some of the light coming through from the light table. It also is quite big and dark, and that helps with blocking out some of the light that comes up from the light table and prevents it from hitting your lens and getting lens flare. So if you don't have an Epson V800 or any slide holders like that, you can actually buy a slide holder like this from Lomography. It's called the Digitalizer, and they make these for 120 medium format film and 35mm format film. So if you don't have an Epson V800 film holder or one of the other film holders from the other manufacturers, then this is definitely an option worth considering. So once I had the images loaded into Lightroom, my editing process depended on what type of film it was. For colour negative film, colour and black and white, I use Negative Lab Pro. Now I downloaded their demo version just yesterday and I've been playing around with that, and we're going to go through some of the results and compare it to some of the results that I've got on my flatbed scanner with Silverfast very soon. With the colour slide film, positive film, Negative Lab Pro doesn't support that, so the only way that I was able to edit the images taken with my DSLR in Lightroom was to play around with the colours, which wasn't easy. So I kind of came up with a bit of a process that I went through to try and achieve the right colours, because if you've watched any previous videos that are out there about DSLR scanning, particularly with slide film, it's quite common that colour management or getting the colours right is quite difficult. So the process that I went through was this. I've got a number of colour targets that I use for calibrating the colour of my flatbed scanner and Silverfast for the specific slide film that I use. And what I mean is I have a colour target, an IT8 Colour target for Kodak Ektachrome. I've also got one for Provia, and I've also got one for Fujifilm Velvia 50. So what I did is I took images with my DSLR of the colour targets using the light table, using the process that I've just described to you, and then I uploaded them into Lightroom. What I also did is I put these colour targets in my flatbed scanner, opened up Silverfast, I calibrated the scanner For example, for Ektachrome, I then did a scan and created an image with the Ektachrome profile of the Ektachrome IT8 target. And I did the same for Fujifilm Velvia 50. So the next thing I did is I uploaded the IT8 targets created from the flatbed scanner into Lightroom. And then using the compare tool, I had the IT8 target open up from the flatbed scanner, and I had the IT8 target open up taken with my DSLR. So essentially, and I'll put a picture up to demonstrate what I mean, I had two IT8 targets open up on my screen, one from the flatbed scanner, one from a DSLR for Kodak Ektachrome, and then I had a separate one open up for Fujifilm Velvia 50. So once I had the two IT8 colour charts open, I basically edited the DSLR scan using the hue, saturation and luminance tool within Lightroom to try and match the colours against the IT8 target out of the flatbed scanner. Now I know it sounds confusing, and it is, and I actually spent quite a lot of time trying to match the colours, and I got it pretty close, I must admit, but it just wasn't quite close enough. Particularly with Fujifilm Velvia 50. Ektachrome I actually got reasonably close, and I was quite happy with the results that I got, but with Velvia 50 it was difficult. But we'll get to that in a second, and I'll show you some images. So once I'd adjusted the IT8 targets and I got the colours reasonably close to the flatbed scan colours, I then went ahead and saved that as a preset titled Fujifilm Velvia 50 or Kodak Ektachrome, so that I could apply it to the image that I'd scanned with the DSLR. So that's a very high level and brief overview of the process that I've been to create these images, and I have to say that I've spent quite a few days playing around with this trying to get it right, and it's been a bit of a struggle. So I'm going to show you a slideshow now, and you're going to see side by side DSLR versus flatbed scanner, and you'll be able to see some image details across the bottom as well. And towards the end we'll catch up and discuss the results briefly. So in terms of the results, what do you think? Please leave a comment down below and let me know your thoughts. So in terms of what I think, if we start off with sharpness, I think that my flatbed scanner is doing a miles better job of creating sharper images than my DSLR. Now I think that's come down to my DSLR. It's a Fujifilm X-T1, it's quite old technology, it's 6 or 7 years old. It's only a 16 megapixel camera, and the lens that I have on here is a full frame Sigma macro lens, which I don't even know what quality this lens is, if it's any good or not. I just kind of bought it locally and just used it, so no idea how good that is. In terms of resolution, I think that it's pretty even between the flatbed scanner and the DSLR. My DSLR did a great job of capturing some of the shadow details, as did the flatbed scanner, so in that respect I think it's even Stevens. So in terms of colour, we'll break this down into 3 sections. We'll go colour negative film, colour positive film, and grayscale for black and white. So in terms of colour negative film, I think the colours coming out of the flatbed scanner and Silverfast are far superior to what comes out of Negative Lab Pro. Now when I did my scans using my flatbed scanner, I used Negafix and the relevant Negafix manufacturer to calibrate the colours, and I did exactly the same in Negative Lab Pro, but the results were far different. So in terms of colour for slide film, when I compared the two, I think that the colours coming out of my flatbed scanner are better than what I was getting out of my DSLR camera. And I think the reason for that is 2 things. I think that my camera's only 8-bit colour and my flatbed scanner is 16-bit, so the gradients between the colours is not quite the same, and I think that's quite obvious in the images. And the second thing is I spent quite a lot of time trying to match the IT8 targets and never really got there. So I think the winner for colour slide film really is a flatbed scanner. So in terms of black and white film, I really like the grayscale coming out of Negative Lab Pro. It had quite a high contrast, and I think I could work with that quite easily. So I think the ultimate question has to be, is DSLR scanning the future of film scanning? And I think the answer is that it has to be. And there's good reason for that. There aren't many new releases of dedicated film scanners or newer versions of flatbed scanners. The reality is that film photography is struggling generally, although there has been a bit of an uptake in the last few years. But the technology in DSLR cameras is advancing every year by year. You know, there's rumours on the horizon of Nikon releasing a 16-bit 60 megapixel camera, and I think that camera coupled with a 90mm macro lens could be phenomenal for scanning film. But there's still the problem of colour. I think with a bit of tweaking in Negative Lab Pro, you could probably get colour negative film to a point where it's really usable. Black and white film's okay. What it really comes down to is colour slide film. Is it possible to scan slide film with a DSLR and get good results? I think there's a possibility that it could be done, and I think the answer lies within IT8 targets created with relevant film stock, like this one, which is Kodak Ektachrome, or Fuji 50, or any of the others. I think if there was a way to calibrate a DSLR by taking an image of one of these IT8 targets, then you could set the profile of the camera to scan your slide film and you get instant colour, similar to what you get out of Silverfast. If that's not possible, then perhaps Silverfast themselves could update some software or release some new software that allows images created in DSLR cameras to be imported, colour profiles to be added, and you could also utilise the dust removal tools that exist within Silverfast. So to summarise that up, I think if we can get to a point where scanning with a DSLR can reproduce the colours that you can in a flatbed scanner for slide film, I think it could be really successful. And it's close, it just needs somebody to come up with the technology and the software to do it. So that's just a theory. I don't know how to write software and I don't know how to write code, but hopefully in the years to come we're going to see some advancements in DSLR cameras using them for film scanning. So that's it for today's video. I hope you've enjoyed it. Bye for now. Take care.